Hi, this is Dr. Nick. I'm the incrementalist here with incremental insights for better business, better health.
And I'm Fred Goldstein with Accountable Health here, helping companies work on their employee health benefits programs and obviously working with COVID as well. So, Nick, we've been doing this now for well over 70 weeks. And every once in a while, we get some comments coming up on some of the videos being posted on YouTube. Many of these from people who are spouting various, what I guess you would call conspiracy theories about whether or not COVID is real or what it really does. So, why don't we dive into that a little bit?
Well, just to be clear, Fred, it's not like I'm directly in the line of fire like some of the great physicians, Peter Hetz and, others that literally take this and, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tony has bodyguards at this point. So I'm certainly not in that frame, but the idea that this is occasional, I'm struggling with, Fred. It seems to be a never-ending cycle. And one of the things that I've sort of talked about relative to this is you can almost never win this argument. It's the same with the flat earthers. It doesn't matter what data you come up with. There's always something else that they come with. We've seen this with anti-vaccine. They just sort of shift. They, thimerosal was, that was the cause. But once that was, definitively disproven, or as best as you can do so in science, they moved to something else. We're seeing the same with COVID-19 and the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Classic example is, well, this is just flu. It's no different to anything else. And the reality is that we see very clearly that that's not the case. And the thing about deadliness, if you pick something that's really deadly, and I'll pick one that most people will at least have heard of, Ebola is extraordinarily deadly, but it's actually not as problematic as SARS-CoV-2 because it kills people, very quickly, so you can control it. Now, that's obviously terrible, to be clear, and we don't want that to occur at all, but you've got to find the sweet spot in terms of the number of people that die and the speed with which that happens and the average number of people that are infected, because if it spreads too quickly, then it can burn itself out. So COVID-19 is sitting in this sweet spot, and it caused a huge bump in terms of mortality, and it was tilted towards the older age group. It's very clear from the data, it's worldwide. It's just not the case. But there are other ones. I mean, let's talk nanoparticles, Fred. They're injecting nanoparticles into my arm. I'm being tracked. By the way, you're being tracked by your phone all the time, which you carry voluntarily, but that's another question.
Absolutely. So let me set that baby down for a second so it doesn't stick to me. So anyhow, the nanoparticles one is fascinating because of the use of the word nano. Oh my gosh, it's tiny, it's small. And there are nano objects and nano robots, and they are trying to create these things with engineering these devices. But the use of nanoparticles in terms of the vaccine is this fatty envelope they create that's tiny, that protects the RNA, I guess, that then gets into the cells to then create the spike protein. So it's not a nanobot or a nano thing that's going to go ahead and track you or send signals off or perhaps make your phone stick to your face by magnetism. It's just a small fatty particle. And I think it's fascinating that unfortunately the word was grabbed, misunderstood, and then just exploded out into the area, into the community as one of the problems. What are some of the others we're seeing and hearing?
Well, we hear recurrent sort of themes of it doesn't kill young people. Well, unfortunately, we're seeing that that's the case. It's very clear that it impacts the younger generation, not quite as much, to be clear, but if they're not vaccinated, then that's causing more problems. We're seeing more instances of that. I hear sort of pushback because you find instance of the virus or trackers from the virus particles, specifically around this spike protein that seems to cause people an awful lot of challenges, we're seeing it in other parts of the body. Well, that's because the whole spike protein is the piece that sits that we're all familiar with, the infamous picture that is used or used to be used on all of the television shows as a backdrop. Now they've got some other ones, but that spike protein binds to at least the ACE2 inhibitor that's tied to hypertension, and that receptor is all over the body. So it's inevitable that you're going to see this binding in other places. And it's also the reason that we have this long COVID and all of the varied impacts we've seen, vascular instances. We're seeing it as a bloodborne disease. It's why there's some use of anticoagulation or thinning of the blood in the cases of people that have severe disease. So these are all, I would say just there's some elements of reality in what's being presented, but it's not being presented as the full story. So when you understand all of the detail behind it, and to be clear, we don't understand everything about this virus and we continue to learn, but this is all explainable. And, as for the vaccine, that's the other thing. Oh, the spike protein, we're injecting in the vaccine and that's causing the disease. We're not. That thing, that nodule that pokes out of the image that everybody sees, it's a teeny weeny incy little piece of it. And actually it's several of them and different ones per vaccine. They've all gone after different elements. They're all designed to trigger so that the body says, I recognize this. I'm going to then engage the immune system and go combat it before it has to be exposed to the full spike protein and all of the viruses, nefarious actions in our body.
Yeah, I would just say this for people. Please go to valid physician sources for your information and listen to them and make the decisions based on what they're saying. I see so much come out that's being said, masks are ineffective or only 10% effective or this and that. But unless you've read through the studies and understand what they really say, a lot of that data gets thrown around that's not truly relevant.
And I'll just add to that. Unfortunately, just having an MD after your name is insufficient validation because there are some outliers that are throwing up some of these theories. I can't explain why in those instances, but the general consensus from those. So when you think about sources, you have to think reliable and validity. In the case of one physician that was thrown over to me as a suggestion, turns out he has 2 cases of fraud against him, and he's been banned from doing any research as a result of this. A bit like Wakefield, who's not a doctor, by the way, and was struck off the register. When you find people like that, you go, maybe not so much.
And I'll bring out another classic instance. I heard a school board member say this, but it's going to take me some time to find a physician who will write this thing that says I don't need a mask for my child. My first pediatrician, what if they say no? Well, maybe they're saying no because your child didn't need the mask. So that's why you should be listening to them. I thought that was a fascinating article phrase the other night. So with that, again, this is Fred Goldstein with Accountable Health. Thanks so much, Nick. If you'd like more information, please reach out to accountablehealthllc.com.
And this is Dr. Nick. I'm the incrementalist here with Incremental Insights for better business, better health.